1900, on a remote island off the coast of Scotland, something extraordinary and terrifying took place. 3 men, entrusted with the care of a solitary lighthouse, simply vanished. Their disappearance has remained one of the greatest maritime mysteries of all time, baffling investigators and sending chills down the spines of anyone who dares to learn their story. But what happened to them? When a relief ship finally arrived at Eilean Mor, the lighthouse was locked, the light extinguished, and the men Thomas Marshall, James Ducat, and Donald MacArthur were nowhere to be found, their personal belongings untouched. The logbook eerily normal, and yet the island was deserted, no sign of a struggle, no clues to explain their sudden and eerie disappearance, only the sounds of the wind howling through the cracks of the abandoned lighthouse. What caused them to vanish? Did a storm, ferocious and unrelenting, claim their lives? Or is there something darker at play, something far more sinister, lurking in the shadows of the island? What if the answers were hidden in the eerie silence of the lighthouse itself? Some believe the men simply succumbed to the unforgiving sea, a fate sealed by the merciless elements. Others think the mystery runs deeper, much deeper. Could it have been the work of something unseen, something ancient that dwells in the darkness of the island, something that only the lighthouse's keeper knows, before they vanish forever? The truth behind their disappearance remains locked in silence, like the storm that swallowed the island whole. But we are left with a single question, one that still haunts the shores of Eilean Mor today. Could something unnatural have taken them? The mystery of the missing lighthouse keepers remains unsolved to this very day, and the truth, well, it's as elusive as the mist that blankets this forgotten island. But stay with us as we uncover the chilling events that led to their disappearance, and perhaps the terrifying reason they were never found. Was it the sea that claimed them, or something far more terrifying? Stick around as we unravel the eerie mystery of the missing lighthouse keepers of Eilean Mor. Eilean Mor, a desolate, wind-swept island off the rugged coast of Scotland, sits like a forgotten sentinel, watching over the relentless waves of the North Atlantic. Its craggy cliffs rise from the storm-lashed sea, towering above the expanse of water that stretches out toward the horizon. It's a place where the wind never rests, where the sky seems to remain perpetually darkened by brooding clouds. In this harsh, unforgiving environment, the lighthouse was built, a solitary structure designed to guide ships safely through treacherous waters and warn them of the jagged rocks that lie just beneath the surface. But in December of 1900, something happened. Something that has puzzled experts and terrified sailors for over a century. On the night of December 15th, the light went out and the keepers vanished. The lighthouse was manned by 3 men, each one part of a delicate balance between civilization and the savage sea. Thomas Marshall, the experienced keeper, was the heart of the station. A seasoned lighthouse keeper with years of service, Marshall knew the dangers of these waters well. James Ducat, his dependable assistant, had worked with Marshall for years, and together they kept the lighthouse running smoothly, watching over the waves as countless ships passed by. And then there was Donald MacArthur, the young relief keeper, new to the job but no less essential to the daily upkeep of the station. The mission was simple: maintain the lighthouse, ensure the beam remained steady through the night, and provide a beacon of safety for the ships navigating the dangerous waters. But one fateful night, as the wind howled and the waves crashed against the island, the light in the tower went dark. It was the last time anyone would ever see those 3 men again. When a relief ship arrived on December 26th, after several days of silence, they found nothing. The lighthouse was locked, the beam extinguished, and the men were gone. No one was there to greet them. No one had sent a distress signal. There was no sign of a struggle, no evidence of an accident, no note and no explanation. The lighthouse was still standing, the light had been extinguished, but all the men, Thomas Marshall, James Ducat, and Donald MacArthur, had disappeared into thin air. The logbook, however, told a strange tale of unsettling events leading up to their disappearance, but it was unclear and ultimately unexplainable. The logbook, which might have held vital clues, recorded strange events in the days leading up to their disappearance. Flickering lamps, odd weather patterns, and an increasing sense of unease. But nothing explained why the men vanished. The storm had passed. The sea was calm. Yet, the men were gone, leaving. No trace, no footprints in the sand, and no sign of a struggle. The lighthouse, now dark and abandoned, seemed to mock the unanswered questions, standing there as a silent witness to the mystery. The men had vanished without a trace, leaving only unanswered questions and an island that seemed to hold a secret that has yet to be uncovered. So, what happened to the lighthouse keepers of Eilean Mor? Was it the sea that claimed them, or something far more terrifying? In the days, months, and years that followed their disappearance, theories would arise, some grounded in the unforgiving nature of the sea, others far darker, perhaps too unsettling to consider. But one thing was certain: the island had claimed its keepers, and the mystery remains unsolved. In the weeks leading up to the disappearance of the 3 lighthouse keepers, something felt wrong. The weather, so characteristic of the North Atlantic, had grown increasingly violent. Gale-force winds howled relentlessly, sending waves crashing against the rocks like battering rams. Storms rolled in with terrifying unpredictability, and yet, after each one, there would be an eerie calm, a silence so deep it felt as though the island itself was holding its breath, waiting for something. The lighthouse keepers had written about these strange patterns in their log entries. The wind would rage, and then it would fall deathly quiet, unnatural, as if something was trying to contain the chaos. The last log entry, made by James Ducat on December 12, 1900, seemed entirely ordinary. It recorded nothing out of the ordinary. A storm had passed through, but nothing unusual had occurred on the island. Yet there was something in his writing, a tone that felt off. It was almost as if Ducat was trying to convince himself that everything was fine, that the storm had been nothing to fear. But strange, even after the storm had passed, there was no sign of damage on the island, no broken windows, no overturned furniture, nothing to suggest that anything unusual had occurred. It was as if the storm had never truly reached them, and yet the men felt something was amiss. It was the next day that things took a far darker turn. The lighthouse, usually a beacon in the night, was found locked up tight, the lantern extinguished, and there was no sign of life. The men were gone, vanished without a trace, but even more chilling was what they left behind. Their personal belongings, clothing, food, and even a half-finished meal were left untouched. Everything was in its place, as though the men had simply stepped out for a moment. But they never returned. No one had heard a scream, no distress signal had been sent, and there was no sign of struggle, no signs of anything that could explain their sudden and inexplicable disappearance. It was as though the island itself had swallowed them whole, leaving no trace behind. The more they searched, the more perplexing the mystery became. As the relief ship's crew searched the island, eerie clues began to emerge, each one more unsettling than the last. A chair, found near the edge of the lighthouse, seemed to suggest that one of the men had been standing there, looking out over the endless expanse of fog and mist, perhaps waiting for a ship to approach, or perhaps waiting for someone or something. But as the search continued, the eerie clues only deepened the mystery. The chair was the only sign of life they found. But there were no footprints in the dirt, no trace of the men anywhere. Not a single step marked the path that would have led them away from the lighthouse. How could they have simply vanished without leaving a mark? A silent void stretching into the mist and the storm-ridden sea. No one could explain what had happened. The search continued, and more questions piled on top of the ones already unanswered. Where had the men gone? Why was there no trace of their departure? And why, above all, was the lighthouse still standing, untouched by the passage of time? The disappearance of the 3 lighthouse keepers would go on to become one of the most eerie and unsettling mysteries of the early 20th century. For over a century, experts and amateur sleuths alike have attempted to uncover the truth, but the island remains silent, its secrets sealed beneath the cold waves of the Atlantic. What happened to Thomas Marshall, James Duckett, and Donald MacArthur? Could the island itself have claimed them, or was there something more, something darker, at work? But it was the final entry, written just before the men vanished, that sent chills down the spines of all who read it. "Storm is over, but something is wrong." The phrase, simple yet chilling, rang through the minds of those investigating the case. What could he have meant? Was it the storm's aftermath that unsettled him? Or was there something more, something darker, at work? The storm had passed, the weather had calmed, and the seas were eerily still. Yet something was off. The men were nowhere to be found. In the days that followed, the sea had swallowed all evidence of their existence. No ships had passed by the lighthouse, despite the light's constant flickering beacon. The very thing that was meant to protect sailors from the wrath of the sea had become a silent witness to the disappearance of its keepers. Had the sea simply claimed them, as it had countless others? Or was something far worse at play? When the relief crew arrived, they found the lighthouse locked. Everything was in its place, no broken windows, no signs of a struggle. The atmosphere inside was almost suffocating, the silence deafening. The men's personal belongings were left untouched, and yet one thing stood out above all else. The lamp had been deliberately extinguished, not blown out by the storm, but snuffed out intentionally. But it wasn't just the extinguished light that raised questions. The atmosphere inside was oppressive, like something unseen was pressing down on the air. There were no signs of struggle, no blood, no broken furniture. But the silence was unbearable. The stillness of the lighthouse felt as though it had been waiting for something to happen, something that had already occurred but couldn't quite be explained. What happened to Thomas Marshall, James Duckett, and Donald MacArthur? Some believe they had simply fallen victim to the sea. After all, the island was isolated, and the violent nature of the ocean could easily have claimed them. But how could they have disappeared without leaving a single trace? No footprints, no remains, no signs of struggle. The sea had swallowed them, or so it seemed. Yet the mysteries only deepened. Some say that the men didn't vanish because of the sea. That's too simple, too obvious. No, there's something more to this mystery, something the sea cannot explain, something supernatural, a force that's been with the lighthouse for centuries, watching, waiting. What if it wasn't the storm that unsettled them, but something far older? Something buried in the island's history? And then there's the chair. The chair found by the edge of the lighthouse, as though someone had been standing there, looking out into the void of the ocean. Was it one of the keepers, waiting for a ship to come through the fog? Or was it someone, or something else, something that the men had seen but couldn't explain? Whatever happened that fateful night, it's clear that something unexplainable took place on that desolate island. Theories abound, from the men falling victim to the unforgiving sea, to the possibility that the lighthouse itself was the true cause of their disappearance. But one thing remains certain: no one will ever know the truth of what happened to Thomas Marshall, James Duckett, and Donald MacArthur. The island still stands, its secrets buried deep within the fog. And the men, they remain lost, as though the very earth had claimed them, leaving only a haunting question behind. As the days turned into weeks, the search for the missing lighthouse keepers dragged on, but no bodies were ever found, not a single trace. The sea had given up no secrets. Theories of shipwrecks and accidental drowning were quickly dismissed, for the weather had not been that severe. There was no storm that could explain their disappearance, not this time. The lighthouse had stood silent through calm seas, its beam cutting through the mist, and yet the men, its keepers, had vanished. Some of the more hopeful investigators believed that the men had simply left in a panic, abandoning their post in the face of an overwhelming storm. But there was one glaring issue with this theory. Nothing had been disturbed. No broken windows, no overturned furniture, no signs of desperation. And why would they leave, abandoning the one thing that could have saved them, the lighthouse lamp? It made no sense. No storm had ravaged the island to the point of chaos. They had simply disappeared. But as the years passed, strange whispers began to surface, whispers that refused to die. Sailors passing through the area spoke of flickering lights at the top of the lighthouse, long after it had been abandoned. They would speak of seeing a faint glow, dancing through the fog on moonless nights, as if the lighthouse itself were alive, haunted by the men who once kept its flame burning. But that was not the only thing that unsettled those who dared to approach the lighthouse. In the dead of night, sailors would sometimes hear whispers coming from within the tower. Soft, unintelligible words that seemed to drift on the wind, carried from the windows like a cry for help. Some even claimed to have seen shadows moving in the lighthouse windows, figures that had no right to be there. Was it the wind, the play of shadows, or something far darker, far older? Years passed, but the haunting tales surrounding Eilean Mor continued. The lighthouse remained abandoned, but the island seemed to hold on to its secrets. Families of the missing men, left with no answers, struggled to find closure. The unanswered questions gnawed at them, tormenting them in their waking hours and haunting their dreams. What had happened to their loved ones? Where had they gone, and why had they left no trace? For those who had lived in the shadows of the lighthouse, those who had loved the men, questions were never answered. The unanswered silence, the emptiness of the island, crept into their bones and left them forever unsettled. The mystery had burrowed deep into their minds, and as the years passed, they too began to wonder. Could something darker, something far more unnatural, have taken the men that night? Could the island itself have claimed them? And still to this day the island stands as a testament to the men who vanished there, 3 souls lost to the winds and the sea. Eilean Mor has become a place of legend, a dark and foreboding reminder that some mysteries may never be solved. No one knows what truly happened that fateful night. No one knows why the light was extinguished or why the men disappeared without a trace. Was it the sea that claimed them? Or was it something far more sinister, something that no one could have prepared for? The answers lie deep within the fog, hidden in the silence of Eilean Mor. Some say that the men are still there, still trapped in the place where they vanished, waiting for someone to uncover the truth. But as time passes, the mystery of the lighthouse grows colder, and with it, the chilling possibility that some stories are better left unsolved. The island remains untouched, shrouded in mystery, its secrets whispered only to the wind. Now, we want to hear from you. What do you think happened to the keepers of Eilean Mor? Was it simply a freak accident? A deadly storm that claimed their lives? Or do you think something darker, something far more sinister, was at play on that isolated island? Could it have been the sea, as some have said? Or was there something more, something ancient lurking beneath the waves? Perhaps you've heard the whispers, the rumors of strange occurrences at the lighthouse after the men vanished, flickering lights long after it was abandoned, shadows that seemed to move in the corners of your vision. Could these be the restless spirits of the men who disappeared? Or is there something else at work here, something otherworldly? We know you've been thinking about it, imagining what it must have been like for those men, trapped in that lighthouse. What would you have done if you were there? Would you have braved the storm, or would the eerie silence and the whispers have driven you to madness? Was it the sea that took them, or something far worse? There are so many theories about what happened on that remote island. Some say the men simply fell victim to the elements. Others think something far darker was at play, something that no one has dared to fully understand. What do you think? Was the lighthouse cursed? Could something be watching from the mist, waiting for the next victim? Don't be afraid to share your theories with us. What do you think could explain the strange occurrences at Eilean Mor? Do you believe the men were simply victims of an unfortunate accident? Or is there something more haunting that the island is keeping hidden? Maybe you've come across other theories, stories from sailors, or legends whispered on dark nights. We want to know what you think. Drop your theories, your thoughts, your ideas down in the comments below. Whether you believe it was a storm that swept them away, or something more supernatural, we want to hear it. The deeper you dig into this mystery, the stranger it becomes. Was the island simply a place of misfortune, or was it a trap, waiting for the next unsuspecting soul? If you enjoy unraveling mysteries like this one, if you love diving into the unknown, uncovering the eerie truths that lie hidden just beyond our reach, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We've got many more chilling tales and real-life mysteries waiting for you, stories that will make you question what's real and what's not. Don't miss out. More unsolved cases, more unexplained disappearances, and more whispers from the dark side are coming your way. And remember, when you're standing on the edge of the sea, looking out into the endless night, what do you think is out there? The keepers of Eilean Mor vanished, but could their spirits still be trapped on the island, forever bound to its cold, lonely shores? Or is there something darker, something still lurking in the mist, waiting for the next lost soul? Share your thoughts with us, hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe. Or the next time you hear a whisper in the wind, it might be someone or something calling your name. And so the island of Eilean Mor remains, untouched by time and forever shrouded in mystery. The fate of the three lighthouse keepers, Thomas Marshall, James Duckett, and Donald MacArthur, still haunts the winds that sweep across those desolate shores. Their disappearance, inexplicable, their final moments, lost to the sea. But as the years pass, the whispers of what happened that night still echo in the minds of those who dare to listen. The lighthouse stands silent and empty, but the shadows within may never fully fade away. Perhaps some mysteries are never meant to be solved. Perhaps some questions are better left unanswered. But the island of Eilean Mor, with its echoes of the past, will always call to those who are willing to listen. The fate of the keepers may remain forever in the dark, but the island will always hold on to its secret, waiting just beneath the surface of the calm, unbroken sea. What if the keepers never left? What if they're still there, trapped in the fog, still watching, still waiting? What if the island has claimed them for good? Somewhere out there, the truth still waits. Perhaps it will never be found, but the island is always watching, and those who seek the answers may never return. And so, we leave this mystery behind, for now. But remember, the world is full of untold stories, and some of them are just waiting to find you. If you want to hear more chilling tales like this one, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And who knows, maybe the next mystery we unravel will be even darker than the last.